Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Town of Pinetop-Lakeside Council to order. We do have a quorum. Welcome, everybody. Before we get started, I would like to ask you to make sure your cell phones are on silent. We don't want any of them going off during our meeting tonight. I would ask that you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for the invocation. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sir Watson?
Our eternal Father in heaven, we come before thee this evening and give thee thanks for the many blessings that we do enjoy. We are grateful for this beautiful area. We're grateful for the moisture which has replenished the vegetation. We are mindful of those who are serving our country abroad or our responders here locally, and we ask for thy guidance and protection to be with them and their families. We are truly grateful for this great nation, for the freedoms we enjoy. And as we meet to discuss the affairs of this community, we ask for thy guidance to be with us, that we may have the wisdom and direction to make the choices that will best serve our community. We are grateful and mindful of those who may be suffering from losses or illness, and ask thy blessings to be with them. Now, once again, we thank thee for the many blessings that we do enjoy, and we invite thy guidance to be with us and those who may address us. And we do so humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councillor Watson. Item B on our agenda tonight is call to the public. This is a business meeting of the Town Council. The town values and welcomes public input. Please address the council and not individual council members. Do not address staff or members of the audience. Council action and items brought up in call to the public is limited by the open meeting law. The council may direct staff to study the matter and reschedule for further discussion at a later date. Items on the agenda will not be heard in call to the public, and individuals are limited to 3 minutes. I have no requests to speak in call to the public. So we will then move on to item C, which is the consent agenda. All items are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion of the council. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of town council requests that an item or items be removed. Council members, however, may ask questions without removal of the item from the consent agenda, and items removed are considered in their normal sequence unless called out of sequence. Tonight we have 2 items on our agenda. Any questions, comments from the council? Okay, Vice Mayor?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you. That carries unanimously. Item D, business before the council. Public comment will be taken at the beginning of each agenda item after the subject has been announced by the mayor and explained by staff. Any citizen who wishes may speak one time for 5 minutes on each agenda item, either before or after council discussion. Questions from council members, however, may be directed to staff or member of the public through the mayor at any time. Item D1 tonight is the recognition of Walking Down Ranch thrift store manager Jamie Poteet for 5 years of service. Deborah Cartwright. You guys got her good, I guess. Deborah, would you like to come up, or Maggie, or who's going to present? If you come up to the microphone and introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Hi, my name is Deborah Cartwright. I'm the one that got her nominated, I guess. She's going to kill me when this is over with. But she's a wonderful person. She's done amazing things, and I a better person for this thrift store to have been opened for my own personal and for volunteering and helping with the vets. So.
Thank you. Maggie, did you want to say anything?
I just want to say Jamie's been with us almost since the beginning, and she has evolved all of us and done a wonderful job over there. And I know sometimes it doesn't appear that way, but we have been swamped, and she has been busy, and she works till 11 o'clock some nights and puts her whole soul in this job. So we think she deserves every bit of recognition that she gets.
Yes, she does.
Thank you. Thank you for calling this to our attention. It's always nice to be able to present something or honor somebody for what they give back to our community, because there are a lot of people that do it. So Jamie, thank you for everything that you do for our community. Thank you for being here tonight. Okay, item D2 tonight is a presentation and update of the Town of Pinetop-Lakeside Community Engagement. Tony Alba.
Good evening, Mayor Irwin, Vice Mayor Smith, members of the council. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to you, in front of you, to present an update on our community engagement plan. I get to stand up here and make the presentation, take all the credit. Annie DeRosier is really the one who has poured her heart and soul into this, and we'll talk about the survey here in a few minutes, but it has taken countless hours of research to put this together. So we're very excited. Several months ago, earlier this year, the council, as part of the 5-year strategic plan, directed staff to really design and implement a community engagement plan within 2 years. Community engagement is an ongoing effort. It's not something that we're just starting. We've been doing it for many, many years, long before I started here, through special events, through Talk of the Town, through our social media efforts, even the library and recreation programs that we do, they're all community outreach. When COVID hit early in 2020, we were put in a position where we had to live stream our council meetings because people couldn't come. That's community outreach. A few years ago, we commissioned Rob Hefner of Birdman Media, along with Garrett Muldrum of MOL Films, to really assist us in our efforts, and they have done an outstanding job for us. I have a video. It's about 5 minutes long, so if you have your popcorn, break it out now. This really kind of encapsulates some of the areas in which Birdman and Garrett have been able to help us. So, Christy, if you would, please. Get a little louder. Very good. Thank you, Christy. Rob, Garrett, both stand, please, and be recognized. Obviously, keep them very busy. That only scratches the surface of some of the work they've done for us. So I want to thank them very, very much again for supporting our efforts to reach the community. Again, based on the direction of council earlier this year during development of the strategic plan, we were directed to bolster what we're already doing in terms of community engagement. We've initiated a long-term plan that will include a survey, a community engagement website, community outreach meetings, and increased communications with the public. The first step was to design and launch a community satisfaction survey. And again, Annie poured countless hours into putting this together. It started out in the research phase, and that was extensive, and then designing the survey, testing it internally and with a very small audience, evaluating how it worked, and then finally the launch. Our survey, which can be found on the town's government website at Pinetop-Lakeside.az.gov, launched on September 1st of this year, just a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago today, actually. Our goal with this survey is really multifaceted. And again, this was all at your direction. We want to measure community satisfaction. We want to identify opportunities and priorities of our community. And we want to help guide you in your future decisions and us as a staff in terms of what we undertake. Some areas may not be in the town's control, but we want to gather an accurate picture and pulse of our community in all areas, whether it's our responsibility or not. Since launching 2 weeks ago, response has been overwhelming. As of this afternoon, we've received 678 responses. In 2015, we did a similar survey, again before we got here, and we received about half that number of responses in total. So we're very pleased with how things are going so far. We plan to keep the survey open through probably early to mid-October. We want to give everyone the opportunity to make sure they participate. And our goal is to reach a very wide demographic that truly presents a picture of our entire community. The survey can be completed anonymously, takes about 10 to 12 minutes, but we're also offering an incentive of a Safeway gift card. If they want to enter that drawing, which is random, they need to give us their contact information, but it is absolutely not required. Few early takeaways from what we've seen so far. Resident satisfaction of the overall quality of life here in Pinetop-Lakeside is trending really good. You'll be very pleased when you see the final results of that. But we are seeing a few challenges bubble up to the surface, including traffic and the impact of vacation rentals here in town. And when it comes to our events, this might be a little surprising. Bubbling up to the very top is the mayor's tree lighting, followed by the Fall Festival Parade, which will take place next weekend. It even beat my beloved Balloon Festival, which is trending third, but a close third. So we still have a shot. Anyway, hopefully this gives you an idea of what we hope to learn about our community moving forward. Again, I want to thank Andy for all of her hard work in putting this together. And I am happy to answer any questions about the survey or any other portion of our community engagement plan.
Any questions from the council?
Just when will the final results of the survey be done?
Our plan is to leave it open again through early to mid-October. It will take us quite a while, several weeks, to go through and really dive in and analyze it all. We plan to present it to the town council in a work session outside of a council meeting. Eventually, we can do it at a council meeting, but we really want to give you the opportunity to dive in with us and pick those results apart. So I haven't scheduled that with Keith yet, but probably in November, and it could be, a half day, perhaps even longer. There's a lot a lot of data there to unpack. Annie is like, when the survey launched the next morning, it was like Christmas morning for her because she's a self-proclaimed data geek. So that's really her thing. But yes, we'll let you dive into it in a work session, probably in November.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I would like to thank our community for responding to this because I think that's amazing that we have that many respondents already.
Absolutely. And again, if you have not had the opportunity, you can find it at our government website, Pinetop-Lakeside.az.gov.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
you.
And Annie. Okay, we'll move on then to item D3, which is consider resolution number 22-1633, approving the 2023 Arizona Governor's Office of Highway Safety contract number 2023-PTS049 through the Arizona Governor's Office of Highway Safety Plan. Commander Wilkie.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. As I'm sure you're aware, we have an ongoing relationship with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, and this is just a continuation of that relationship to support their mission of providing safer highways and streets for the state of Arizona. This is a grant that we applied for. It's going to be an overtime grant, and it's to support the Selective Traffic Enforcement Program. And the goal of that program is to reduce incidences of traffic fatalities and injuries resulting from speeding, aggressive driving, red light running, and other forms of risky driving behavior through enforcement, education, and public awareness. The grant is strictly a overtime grant, so it covers overtime and employee-related expenses. There's no equipment or anything involved in this. The period for the grant is October 1st of this year through September 31st of 2023.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Commander Wilkie? Comments? Motion, Councilor Buse?
I move to adopt and approve resolution number 22-1633, authorizing approval of the 2023 Arizona Governor's Office of Highway Safety contract number 2023 PTS 049, authorizing the Chief of Police as agent and/or his designee for the town of Pinetop-Lakeside to conduct all negotiations and execute and submit all documents and any other necessary or desirable instrument in connection with such grant.
A second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Commander Wilkie. Don't go far. Nope. Item D4 is the introduction and acknowledgement of Officer Michaela Ramos' promotion to Sergeant for the Pinetop-Lakeside Police Department. Chief?
I think the commander's going to give a few comments, and I'll comment after that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, I volunteered for this also. So we are here to present Sergeant Mickey Ramos as our newest sergeant. She started with the town of Pinetop-Lakeside as a communications specialist or dispatcher in 2015. In December of 2017, she graduated the Northern Arizona Law Enforcement Training Academy as the top recruit, and she was also the class leader throughout the academy. During her career with the police department as an officer, she's continued to excel and challenge herself and acquire skills and training that have brought her to this position. We did a sergeant selection board on August 17th, which was an all-day event with 3 different cycles of that event, and we had 3 people that put in for the position, 3 of our senior officers, all internal officers, put in for the position, and Mickey finished first, so here we are.
Thank you.
I want to thank Sergeant Ramos for her dedication to the town of Pinetop-Lakeside. She's put in a lot of years with us so far at the town and has done a tremendous job for us. I'm proud of where she's come and the training that she's put in and expertise that she's gained over the years to move into the position of sergeant. And congratulations.
I would just like to add to that. I've watched you grow in your position since you were a dispatcher, and I'm just so proud of you. I think we all are very proud of you that we have this homegrown young lady who's advanced and just excelling. So thank you, Mickey. We appreciate you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anything else, council members?
I'll-
Councilor Heisler?
Yeah, I was reminiscing today about watching you when I think you were going through the recruit physical agility test and we were on standby all the way to where you are now. And I just want to commend your commitment to professional law enforcement and also to the town of Pinetop-Lakeside. I think it's excellent. It's something to be very proud of.
Yes, thank you, Commander Chief. I believe we have some goodies. Annie and Christy have been hard at work, and so I don't know, are you guys going to pass those out, or what's your plan? You're welcome to take what they want. And there's cups there if you want to take it to go. Those cupcakes right down in there. Okay, homemade cupcakes for celebration tonight, and thank you all the other officers that came tonight and support staff. Some pictures there. Okay, make sure everybody grabs those cupcakes. I know they're delicious. We're going to move on then to item D5, which is a public hearing, discussion, and legal action considering resolution number 22-1634, approving a major plan amendment to the 2015 general plan land use element. Jeremiah.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, members of the public. Tonight we have before you a major amendment to the general plan and land use element. And as Tony mentioned earlier, when we met in the council retreat, this was also one of the items that you had directed me to look at more closely was the possibility of creating a land use element update in advance of the 2025 general plan. So we commenced that, and we started, I believe, in early March. We held, this will be the 6th meeting that we've had. We had 4 meetings open to the public, and we had 2 public hearings. We also notified the Arizona Commerce Authority, Navajo County, and the city of Show Low of our plans to move forward with this amendment. So is there any questions?
Are you going to go through it with us?
We can go through
The changes?
some of the changes. Yeah. So some of the things when I first started looking at this, what I noticed is it basically, not to detract from the work that was done by the prior Planning and Zoning Commission, and the text that accompanied this was very solid. But some of the things that I noted when I was looking at the land use element was that it actually had a couple flaws, one being that we were practicing extraterritorial jurisdiction within the county. So we had expanded our municipal planning into the county, and that's actually not allowed because the county has their own municipal planning, or they have their own planning agency. One of the other things that I noticed was an area, so as one of the components per state statute that we're supposed to have in here is a defined density for each one of these land uses, and it was lacking in one particularly of interest, which was forest. So we didn't know if that was open space or if we didn't know what was going on there because there was no density attached to it. So we tackled that, and we looked at what those areas zone, or not zone, but rather planned as forest could be in the future. So instead of just having an inventory of this is what's out there and not really having a direction of where we want to go, we tackled it from that perspective. So we looked at areas around the Rim Trail, and we looked at areas around the Penrod Corridor in Pinetop, and the commission came to the conclusion that those areas would be best addressed as planned unit developments or planned developments in the general plan. And then on the boundaries of that, on the other side of Billy Creek would be a lower density residential. That's 1 to 5 dwelling units, basically. Then we also looked at what could be done with the large area on Penrod, just north of Porter Mountain, because that area was also in the prior land use map as forest. So we looked at that, and a large swath of it became planned unit development, and we designated a commercial corridor along Penrod, and we looked at Jake Hughes Marsh and thought that maybe something like commercial recreational type of zoning, but since we're not looking at zoning, we did neighborhood commercial, which could entail that. And then we also looked at a lot of the open spaces. We looked at floodplains, and we tried to marry those up. There was a lot of good studies, data from FEMA, and we incorporated that, but there was also some that was lacking in the area that I described initially around the Penrod corridor and Pinetop. And so we basically did a 200-foot, 100-foot on center swath along that area to kind of capture some of that floodplain in that area. We looked at a couple smaller areas. We looked at the intersection of Porter Mountain and 260 and saw that that was probably a better use to be looked at as a commercial type of use. And so we switched that. That's one of the other changes. So yeah, we did a lot of work on this, and that's why we're here today. So with that, is there any other questions that the council may have?
Any questions for Jeremiah? Oh, okay. Councilor Krigbaum.
Hi, Jeremiah. I feel a little uncomfortable with this because I have not been to those 6 meetings, or that this is the 6th one. I need a little time to get used to this. It just doesn't quite feel right to me. I'm sorry, but I'm not ready to vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Is there a particular question you have that Jeremiah might be able to help with?
Not now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other council comments or questions? This is a public hearing. We have 2 individuals who have submitted to speak tonight. The first one is Rob Ingalls.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just heard some words that could have come from my mouth. I'm not ready to accept this yet. I may have been the only citizen that ever spoke at a public hearing in front of the Planning and Zoning regarding the proposed amendment that is to be considered by you folks tonight. I'm one that has been involved in past years in community meetings, and sitting here tonight, the presentation by Mr. Alba was kind of exciting to see. They have now got the survey out there. And it seems that some of that information would be relevant to the citizens and you as a council when you're considering amending the general plan, in my eyes anyway. The impacts of the land use being changed is predominantly, through my eyes, to increase density and spur development in areas that in some areas are very appropriate. I like the idea and spoke to the commission about the Penrod Road area specifically being suitable for commercial, higher density residential, and being aware that Sholo has a capital improvement plan to tie a road in ultimately to that area on the Penrod Road, which helps another element in the plan, the circulation element. So I'm not sure how thoroughly this has been looked at to go forth, but coming tonight and knowing that you didn't even see the minutes yet, to my understanding, they were not available, of the public hearing that occurred at the last Planning and Zoning meeting. Typically as a draft, you would at least know what the content of that meeting was and may help you feel that you've had an opportunity to carefully review, as the recommendation said, carefully consider and adopt the major plan amendment for the land use. I do know that part of the wording in the general plan talks about it being a citizens plan, and it's our responsibility. You're all citizens too up there. And so I just would say that at this point, I was uncomfortable to see property near my residence on a dead-end road of Penrod Lane, seeing a presentation to the commission where the new owners of the property only wanted to add 2 more cabins to the 5, I believe, that are already there on 2.6 acres. And so the recommendation to go plan development is to allow them commercial use of a property that has been our low. And in that particular area where the road dead ends, just didn't seem that if that's where we're evolving to by part of this amendment, I was uncomfortable with that, and that's just personally. Again, the minutes kind of bothered me that they aren't here for you to review. The claim that there were 6 meetings. I did attend quite a few meetings. I know one I did miss. But the lack of public interaction and even the details that were shared at the podium just a few minutes ago from our community development director, I was hearing things for the first time, like the commercialization around the Penrod Road crossing there where the bridge and the pedestrian got built, that, yeah, that makes good sense too. I'm a little concerned that we might lose the opportunity, if it's not on the land use map, to preserve some of the trails that might be along Billy Creek, the Rim Overlook Trail, I know has got some easements on that. But also our community could certainly use some community parks beside just the big meadow and Woodland Park. So I just kind of think that it would be wonderful to see more public interaction. Over the decades that I've lived in this community, oftentimes there would be a town hall type meeting. There would be a lot of discussion. People would have a chance to share their feelings, mark maps, and then that would evolve into the major or into the general plan being readopted or changed. And I just think that this is kind of a rush through when the minutes from the last public hearing aren't available and haven't even been adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission. I could go on. I've had a busy day, but these were my concerns. With the survey results being acquired into October, evaluated, maybe this could be held off till November when that kind of input from the community would be a part of the, at least the interaction and the awareness of our citizenry knowing what the amendment is all about and why. So my encouragement from the podium would be to don't do it tonight, get more information, create somehow better public involvement with this. It is our general plan that's going to be amended, and then look at rescheduling for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Norris Dodd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. I probably just really what I want to do is underscore kind of what Rob said. It is apparent that the P&Z Commission has put a lot of hard work and diligence into developing proposed future land use map for major plan revision. Unfortunately, their hard work is met with limited public awareness, involvement, and input. At the August 25th hearing, where they approved the map, there were only 3 people in attendance, 3 citizens in attendance. Part of the issue is, I believe, that people don't understand the relevance and the importance of the future land use map. Tell them it's a roadmap to future growth for Pinetop-Lakeside, and I think you could fill a town hall or a public meeting. They need to understand what the relevance is. And I suspect that, we would get a lot more engagement from the community. As such, I also urge you to delay approval of the proposed major plan amendment until further, more focused public outreach is conducted. I think you've got something that's potentially really good here. And toward that end, to further inform not only the public, but also the council, I would request that the Community Development Department conduct a current versus proposed map geographic information system analysis showing the acreage or percentage of the town in the different land elements, so people can see the changes. You just asked about the changes, but they would like to see how these things are changing the outlook of the acreage of the town limits. I think this would really help clearly display the changes much more clearly and help the town sell it. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody else that wanted to address us tonight? Okay, seeing none, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and open it up for council discussion. I would like to thank Norris for commending the P&Z Commission. They have done a lot of work on this, and I I do think that they sometimes have a very thankless job. Nobody really realizes what goes on behind the scenes, and they do a lot of work. So we appreciate that. So please convey that to them, Jeremiah, if you wouldn't mind. And could you explain a little bit how this kind of fits in with the revision of the general plan that we are going to be working towards?
Right,
Please.
so this is basically, in my opinion, this is one of multiple elements, but it's basically the key element in the general plan. The land use element, which dictates where we'll go in the future. And I agree with the statement that Mr. Dodd said that maybe if we had cast it and that framed it in that light, that maybe perhaps we would have gotten more feedback. We did make effort. I mean, it was in the newspaper. It was recently we put this meeting on the Talk of the Town. Thank you, Tony, for that. And we have had many discussions and many people in the room, and then when this item comes up, they leave. And so we're left with the few that spoke tonight, basically, as our citizens, although I do consider myself a citizen as well. But yeah, so we put a lot of work into this, and you can actually see, I don't know if Rob saw this, but there are an indication of where the trails are on this map, and that was taken basically right out of the other land use map where they were on there. I like the idea of showing the numbers. Some people pick up things graphically, some people, when they see it numerically, it makes more sense. So I'm open to any suggestions, certainly. I do think that the Planning and Zoning Commission put a lot of work into this already, and I do think that it's a good product. And one of the things that in the future, we're going to be doing an update in a few years anyway. So my suggestion is, hey, this is really only for a couple of years, and we can have a redo in 25, which the process would start in 24. So what would I suggest to the council for consideration? Adopt this, see if it works for us. We can take certainly into consideration some of the comments that were made tonight and apply those towards the 2025 general plan.
So this is the first step in that revision for the entire general plan.
Right.
Okay. I just want to make sure everybody was clear on that. Councilor Buse.
I also want to commend the P&Z and the staff for the hard work on this. I attended most of the meetings. I wasn't at all 6 of them, but at most of them. And I've spoken to some of you about that. I mean, this room was full on 2 of those occasions. And before this agenda item came up with the planning and zoning, everybody left but 2 or 3 citizens other than myself and a couple of others. So I would really like to get more community involvement, but again, the community was here, didn't stay to look at these issues. So I do think it's probably fair to say that it might be well to wait until after we get the results, though, of the survey, until we actually, to make a decision on that, because that may have some effect on it.
I'm not sure really any of the questions in the survey were specifically addressed to this type of thing. I think we were looking more towards what are we doing right? What do we need to do in our parks? There were some small questions on growth, but I don't know that they really are going to add anything to this, in my opinion. But we could certainly wait. I mean, Councilor Watson.
Yeah, Jeremiah, a couple questions. And first off, Rob and Norris, thank you for your comments. They were insightful and well thought out, so thank you. When we plan on doing the general plan revision, are we looking at using some kind of third-party consultant, and will there be town hall meetings in consideration with that?
That was my suggestion, yes.
I do agree, and like Rob, I've been around here a long time, so I do recall that in past meetings, we did have town hall type meetings, and we displayed things, and we had significant community there to help with that discussion. I think we all know that the land use element is a major part of the general plan, and it is kind of a roadmap for the future. So having said all that, I think my recommendation would be not only to get the results of the survey, because I do think there could be some things there just from general quality of life issues that may or may not impact the land use element, but there could be. But I'd also recommend that maybe we do have not only some statistics of the percentage of land by different categories, but also some visual aids to kind of show current versus proposed that would allow the public a little better insight into what we're changing and why. Not that anything will necessarily change, because I do think what you've proposed is good, but it will at least give a little more opportunity for some additional review and discussion. So my thought at this point is to delay approval of this. I think that we now have a map, though, that we can kind of dissect and compare and hopefully get a little more public involvement.
Right, and to your question, Councilor Watson, there is in the packet, the future land use map is what we have existing, and then also included a cloud section that shows where the changes were in there. So we did look at that as a visual aid. I do like the suggestion of the numbers, because I'm a number person, so I like that suggestion.
Let's see.
Councilor Vice Mayor, go ahead.
I like all the comments, and I think this is great to get these comments. I would very much like to have a further review. I would also like to know a little bit about the county land. The reason I ask is we have a shortage of commercial land within the town.
Right.
But there's perhaps an opportunity to spill over commercial use into the county land that's adjacent to us that would still benefit the town, just not on our town property. So I'd like to know a little bit more about the county.
Sure, and that was captured in the other 2015. I just felt like it was an overreach for us to plan in the county's planning region. I did submit this to Navajo County, Baron Najid, who's the community development director, my counterpart over there, and we can certainly start more of that dialogue to see if there's something that we can come to with as far as the commercial use. And we did, as Mr. Ingles pointed out, include more of that along the Penrod corridor with in the back of our mind, knowing that the city of Shiloh is looking at ways to fund a project that would punch through Scotts Ranch Road to Penrod and open up that corridor.
Vice Mayor?
Well, I agree with everybody. No, good job on it, and I appreciate the comments of Rob and Norris also. They were, like Councilor Watson said, they were well thought out. Personally, I would like to have a little more information just for my personal use. I like maps. I love maps, and I think they show a lot. But with the scale of this map, I don't understand exactly what's going on. So for me, I just like to have a bigger scale so I can see the difference between what we had and what we have now. And I think, you've thought it out. I'm sure it's been well thought out, and it'll probably work fine. I'd like to see that a little differently.
Anybody else? Tony, would you like to add something?
Thank you. I would just like to put a little bit of clarification as to the timeline of the survey. There's been a couple of comments, and that's all fine. If you delay it till November, we're just scratching the surface and just getting started on the survey process. Again, there's going to be a lot of a deep dive by staff and then council, and then we've got to get some public input on that. So to think that that's going to answer all your questions here in the next month or 2 months, I just want to manage expectations. That's the very first step in what could be a 6 to 8 month process.
Counselor Schnitzer?
Yeah, on the issue of timing, and you can clarify if I'm wrong, I'm not sure that we're under the gun to make a decision now, but I do believe if we do create a major plan amendment, then a 12-month clock starts, that we're bound by that amendment until the next chance to change it. You can't do a second major plan amendment for 12 months, is that right?
Once a year.
Once a year, yep.
I believe that's calendar year, so.
Or maybe calendar year, so we could do one and.
It's not really clear, so.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was 12 months, but I remember maybe it is, you can do one in November and one in January.
It just says we can't do more than one major amendment a year.
A year, okay.
Counselor Heisler?
I guess I'm going to be the odd man out here, and I attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings. I heard Mr. Ingalls and I think on one occasion Mr. Dodd speak to the issue. I've heard them talk about community engagement. I know that they're very influential in the community. I've seen them fill this room before. I've spoke to community members about this issue, and I've received no negative feedback from a large portion of the community. And so I guess my question is, to what end do we delay this? Is it, I mean, staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission has put a lot of work into this. And I mean, from my perspective, I think that if there was a public outcry, we've seen it many times before, this room is easily filled with people when there's an issue that they are passionate about. And I think we've seen that in the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings when this was on the agenda. And once that item was off the agenda, those people left the room. And so that's my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's an issue with it beyond understanding it. Right now, if somebody said, "Oh, you voted for this last night, tell me what it means," I would have dumb look number 2 on my face and not be able to explain it. So I absolutely trust planning and zoning to have, noodled this through, but I haven't.
Okay, so.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Would it help for Jeremiah to drill down into the changes that have been suggested more in detail on this? The reason I ask, there will be, and there are probably, some areas that are waiting to come back for a rezone. And without this map being updated, they can't make that request. And so for however long we hold up this process, so if there's more information we can provide for you right now to help to cross that bridge, to help you to understand better what changes we're making, otherwise we're holding up people that are in the wings waiting to come forward. I apologize if we didn't get enough material to the council to help them understand everything that the planning and zoning has put into this. But with all those meetings, they drilled down into this. And some of the council's been there for those meetings. They've heard those discussions. So they know. And we all know you can't always lead a horse to water. We have all those meetings. There's been information in the newspaper. I don't know how to get more people there. So would that be a possibility to drill into this a little bit deeper?
Council, are there any questions you think? Okay, so I guess my question to the rest of the council and to Jeremiah, if we choose not to vote on this tonight, I would like to see us have a plan moving forward, not to just kind of let it, all the work that's been done. And as Keith said, we need to make sure we get it right for the rest of the community. But we also need to look at those folks that are ready to do some projects in our town and get those moving. So I don't want to just kick this down the road and say we'll address it when the survey results are in, when this is done, when that's done. I would like to see some kind of a plan before we leave this agenda item. So can you give us some ideas on what we might think about? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Certainly. A lot of these, as Manager Johnson noted, a lot of these, some, not all of them, but some of the requests, the smaller requests, came in from groups that are waiting in the wings to do development, such as cabins at Billy Creek. This is off of Hill Drive. Currently, there's really nothing there. They want to do like an Airbnb. They have some high-end A-frame models that are pretty neat-looking, actually, but they're dealing with different zoning issues, and so they've been pretty much paralyzed trying to make decisions on whether they make a variance request or a zoning change in order to, bring some more Airbnb specifically built for that. Not second homes, but cabins that are pretty unique in design that I was impressed with, certainly when I saw, but they're kind of waiting in the wings to see a part of this. Because if they were to do a rezoning request, they'd be in a similar situation as the Pinetop Vista cabins. I wouldn't be able to recommend it, unfortunately, because it's outside of the general plan. So there's that part, and then certainly the Pinetop Vista cabins, which Rob Ingles, understandably so, has been an opponent of because it's in his neighborhood. And then there is, most of these were just cleanups from, like I said before, if you look on this is what in your packet, the future land use map, where it shows how we plan in the county. We can't legally do that. We don't practice extraterritorial jurisdiction by state statute. We'd have to approach the county to ask them if we could do that, and it would only be an ask if they didn't have a planning organization, which they do. So that was just a housekeeping item. And I notified the county about that and what I was looking at there. So, and then these other areas, we're here tonight. Later tonight, we're going to hear an appeal for a conditional use permit that was for a portion of land that was in the general plan was shown as forest. So what does it mean to be in forest? We don't know. We didn't have a density, so this at least gives us a density and a plan to say, hey, the community said they wanted to see planned development in this area, and so that's what we're looking at, planned development in that area. The same thing, the same argument goes for the Billy Creek area, the other large section. Basically, there's 3 large sections. So we looked at the area around the rim trail. We looked at this corridor out here that's currently shown as forest on our present land use map element, which doesn't really tell us what it is. Is it open space? There's no density attached to it, so I can't tell you. If someone came in to develop that, I wouldn't know how to approach it because they would certainly have to do a zoning change, and I couldn't recommend that we would proceed down that because there's no density attached with that, so I don't know where that would lead, kind of down a black hole, and I think we've been there before. So this map is trying to pull us out of that, try to give us direction, to try to show a future instead of just an inventory, where we want to go in the future, instead of not planning and saying, hey, we're fine with no development, we don't want any development, and all we're going to show is that this is what's out there and that's the way we want to keep it. So I think that this is a big step forward as far as, opening up avenues and corridors along Penrod and showing, hey, we don't know what the community wants, but certainly we can make room for it. And we can plan for it. And so it doesn't really matter what the results, in my mind, of the community survey are. We'll have different areas available for whatever it is. And a lot of that has to deal with, parks and stuff, and I'm not really dealing with that here. And or what type of commercial they want to see. And we've made room for that, so we're showing that, hey, we're forward-looking and we're planning for the future instead of just taking an inventory. So I really think that this is a big step forward, and if we don't like it, then we could certainly change it in a couple of years. Again. But so to that effect, some of the other things are just clarifications on little areas like I mentioned around Porter Mountain and Penrod. When I looked at that, I scratched my head. I didn't know why it wasn't zoned commercial because of anywhere. That's one of the major intersections in town. So why shouldn't it be zoned commercially or community commercial or shown on the land use map that we want to have commercial in that area if it was feasible? Granted, there's flood issues in that area, but if they were mitigated, then certainly it should be an avenue. It would be it's a good intersection. People are already stopped there. Certainly the politicians believe so because they post that with signs everywhere. So when people say there's no room for growth, there is. We just have to look. It's already there. And so by opening up this box and saying, hey, what's inside here? What is this? What does it mean to be forest? Does it mean nothing, or is there something more to that in the future that we can plan for?
Okay. Counselor Schnitzer.
Just maybe as a way out of the dilemma, without taking a long time, I think we need to take some time. It might be that we could, table this for now and schedule right away, some meetings to understand in detail what we're talking about. And then based on that, we could decide, do we now know enough to proceed, or do we want to wait for the community survey before we proceed? But, I'm reluctant to proceed today, but I don't want to take forever to come to a decision if we can get there faster.
And I agree with that. I think we need to look at this. Maybe if we could schedule a meeting, we could do a work session prior to a council meeting, like at 5 o'clock, and we could have some of these comparison maps, the land use elements in numbers, like X number of acres that we're changing. I don't know if that would help the council with those decisions. Councilor Craigbaum, you're nodding your head.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that would be helpful. Even the next council meeting is in October already, so is that possible? Is that too fast to ask you to give us some more data?
It's certainly possible.
Okay, I would feel more comfortable. I'd also like to have one of those big maps. So I like maps too, but it's just too small, and it's just too new to me. I'm just not comfortable yet. So I need a little more work session. I think a work session would be a really good idea.
So if we had a work session at 5 o'clock prior to our next council meeting, where we had some of these questions answered, obviously the public is welcome, but it is a council work session, and then schedule it for a public hearing on our council agenda. Or maybe we need to wait until the following meeting so that we don't try to do it all at once. What is the council's wish? Keith, do you have a suggestion?
Let's see, so we're looking at the October 6th meeting, having it start a work session at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, just for this one topic.
It would be, Jeremiah, do you think we can get enough information to everybody to answer all the questions?
I can certainly do my best to try. I don't
And then add
think it needs
that.
to go back to the commission. I think they've already put in,
yeah.
A very good effort. And if anything, it's me that needs to be able to extrapolate the data to show you guys what is there and to bring you to a level of comfort where you're willing to adopt it.
Okay, Vice
Certainly,
Mayor?
I don't want to force it either.
Yeah, I kind of agree with the mayor's comments about let's don't kick it too far down the road. And I think if we have an opportunity October 6th to before council to again review with additional information, you kind of know what we're looking for now. We can make a decision that same night.
That night, okay.
Okay.
Just one last quick comment on this before we move on. And to the members of the public that are interested, certainly come to that. And if you have an avenue to get information out, utilize it and bring whoever is interested in attending it so we can have more feedback. Because certainly the more feedback we have, the better plan it becomes. As noted, it's a citizen plan.
That's always been a challenge, to get folks to come until it's right in their backyard and then they're not happy with it. So that's always been a challenge since I've been on the council since 2009. I was on planning and zoning prior to that. I don't know that we're going to be able to change that. We do the best we can. Councilor Watson.
Yeah, for me personally, it is an education for us, but it's also, I do think we need, and just Mayor, just hearing what you said, I agree, but I think personally, if we had a headline in the paper that said the land next to you may be impacted for future use, we would have more people here as opposed to a legal notice that says there is a P&Z commission meeting being held. And typically, when you do general plan updates, that's why you use a third party to help kind of capture that in a way that the general public can understand. I'm just concerned that you're right. And I'm guilty. I hadn't attended any of those P&Z meetings, so I'm guilty as charged, but I'm just concerned that if we just move forward with this and we don't get at least an attempt as a council, besides P&Z and their efforts, an attempt to get the public input, that as we go forward, we're going to get more and more opposition, specifically if we're making some significant changes. And what I see, just going through it earlier today and now, there are some areas that are pretty significant. And I think those areas could be highlighted fairly quickly, and the public could be made aware of what those are. Not that they're going to change, because, our job is to look at the overall good for the whole community and not necessarily everybody's individual backyard. But I personally think, in addition to this work session for us, I think we need one better attempt at making the public aware of how significant this is to our future growth in this area. And if we do that and we still don't get participation, then so be it. Let's move on.
So you're suggesting that we have the work session for the council and then have another meeting? Councilor Snitzer?
Yeah, I think we should plan on having the work session and then plan on taking action. And if it turns out we're not ready to take action, that's okay. We'll just schedule it for the next one and keep stepping until we are ready to take action. If we need more information, plan another work session and then do it. But I would like to see us plan a work session and then plan an action.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I would suggest 4 o'clock, not 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Give us a little bit more time, just in case we're bumping up against 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I think so.
That's fine. My only concern with 4 is that it may impact members of the public who are still at work.
They'll
But
be here if they, yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right, because
If
I
it's
just want to make
important to
sure
them,
we
they'll
hear
be here.
from people.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine.
And also, just so the council knows, this takes a supermajority. And so I know some may not be here, and so we'll certainly be reaching out by phone. But it takes 6 out of 7 to approve a major plan amendment. That's the number, right?
2/3.
Or is it 5?
2/3 of 7, so.
Okay. Do the math, Kevin.
5.
I think that would be 5.
Okay, 5. Okay, I
Maybe
like
5.
that even better. Thank you. Yeah.
Councilor Buse.
I just want to say I'd agree with Councilor Watson. I think an attempt to get more public here would be good. An advertisement in the paper or something, have a meeting for the public as well, and give them one more shot. And if
Can we accomplish that all in this 4 o'clock meeting?
maybe we can.
We could.
I do but that burden's going to be on you as staff to make sure that you have what we need to present it in a way that's understandable to the general public and do it in a concise manner, because it's going to be a fairly short time period. So if you can do that, then I'm 100% supportive.
Okay. Is that, I think we need a motion to reflect this decision. Does anybody want to attempt that?
Well, I'll take a shot at it. I move we table the discussion on this until our next council meeting. And prior to the council meeting, we have a work session to cover the proposal in detail.
And that date is October 6th?
October 6th, yes.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I will second that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It's been moved and seconded to table this item until October 6th. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. That carries 6-1. We will plan on 4 o'clock, October 6th, and we'll dive into this in more detail. Thank you, Jeremiah, for your willingness to do this. And thank you, P&Z, for all their work. Okay, that concludes our regular meeting. So I will adjourn the regular meeting. Don't go away, though. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Of course. We'll take just a break here.
We'll get a cupcake.
We can take a couple minutes.
Go ahead.
We can take a couple minutes, okay.
Hi. Oh, okay. We do have a quorum. Item B is call to the public. This is a business meeting of the Board of Adjustments. The board values and welcomes public input. Please address the board as a whole and not individual board members. Do not address staff or members of the audience. Board action on items brought up and called to the public is limited by the open meeting law. The board may direct staff to study the matter and consider for further consideration at a later date. Items on the agenda will not be heard and individuals are limited to 3 minutes. I currently have no requests for call to the public. So we will move on to item C, which is the approval of the minutes. Consider approval of the minutes of the Board of Adjustment special meeting held on May 19th of 2022. Questions, comments from the board? Have a motion? Vice
I'll
Mayor?
make that. I move that we approve the minutes of the Board of Adjustment special meeting held on May 19th, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you. That carries unanimously. We will move on then to item D, which is business before the board. This is an appeal of conditional use permit 132 that approved a guest ranch. The appellant is requesting a review of the conditions on CUP-132. The property is located at APN 212-01035N. The current zoning is R-Low Rural Zoning District. Jeremiah.
Chairwoman and members of the Board of Adjustment, good evening. Tonight we have, as the chairwoman indicated, we have an appeal to the conditional use permit. This item actually went to the Planning and Zoning Commission several times, and the first time it was approved 4-1, and the second time it was unanimously approved. There was at the last Planning and Zoning meeting, there was a recession of the initial approval and an upholding of the second approval, and an acknowledgement of a possible conflict of interest. So that's kind of a little bit of the background as far as why we're here, or partially at least why. The applicant for the conditional use permit, Mr. Coate, who's here tonight, he approached me, I think, what was it? It was at least 3 months ago. And he, actually, even before that, when I first started at the town, he came to me and said, hey, I have an idea. I think I might want to open up a small restaurant or something to that effect on the rim, on the property that I got out of the Forest Service. And so he was thinking about what he was going to do even then. And then he came forward with the conditional use permit, which the code only requires 10 acres to allow this. And Mr. Coate has well over that. He has, 146, 160? 142.6, I think. So he met that requirement. It falls in line with the general plan by virtue of it capturing uses in open spaces and enjoying outdoors activities. It falls in line with the zoning, and it falls in line with the neighboring parcels that are also doing similar activities as far as Camp Grace and Camp Toddy. So these types of activities are already going on. Is there any other questions from the board?
Questions from the board? Okay, then at this, go ahead, Councilor Krigbaum, or Board Member Krigbaum.
Okay, once again, this map is too small, and all of the printing is really hard to read. In reading the things that we have to decide on, 143 acres is a huge chunk of land, and really the development looked like it was only maybe 15 to 20 acres, and I can't quite wrap my mind around what is going to happen here. So,
right. So one of the things that so Mr. Coate did apply for a conditional use permit, which normally they go for the whole entire parcel, and then one of the requests that came back was for a conceptual site plan to kind of indicate where that would be. So he did submit that. He showed, and sorry that we don't have a better plotter here. We don't have anything that is 24 by 36 at Town Hall. Have to go to Public Works to get that, and I don't know if that would fit inside the packet, but we can certainly make an effort. I don't know. But one of the things that I see of this is this is not a far-fetched request. It's actually, as mentioned in some of the council attended the planning and zoning hearing for this, and as noted in those meetings, this is the applicant could actually build a subdivision here with 180 homes, easily. Because it's R-Low, and he's got 140 plus acres, and you can do a guest house and a primary structure on each one of those. So, and really, in his request, I think this is, as was mentioned in one of those meetings, one of the least impactful things that could be brought forward on this property. And one of the other things that we need to keep in mind is Mr. Coates' property rights. Well, certainly, we're considering the rights of the community, but I mentioned this last time at the Planning and Zoning Commission, this is really about the right to enjoy your property and your property rights. On the surface, it's not that, but it really is. So where does the right to enjoy your property end? Does it end at your property line, or does it extend into your neighbor's property 4 miles away? That's the real question before us tonight.
Councillor Watson?
So, couple comments, maybe more than questions. So it is common practice that an undeveloped piece of property be given a conditional use permit. And typically, the reason for that, as I understand it, is that the owner of that property, again, if it's a substantial piece of property, the owner of that property can kind of come up with a master site plan, but he will develop that in phases over time, right? It's not requesting that he or she give all of the detailed site plans, engineering, utilities, everything up front. It is to say, yes, this piece of property could be developed, and it could be developed over time, and as specific phases of that come forward, that would then be site plan review and approval of those individual phases. So with that, my opinion is that this property and the overall conceptual plan for this property is conducive, as was stated by our director. It is conducive with adjoining properties, and if indeed, as the actual development starts to be planned and identified, it will come back. And I believe one of the requirements could be that each of those site plans reviews be submitted for planning and zoning review as opposed to just administrative review, correct?
That is correct, and that is my recommendation, that that the board tonight makes a condition, attaches the condition to the conditional use permit that, in fact, indeed, this will go back before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that I won't approve it administratively behind closed doors, so the public will again have a chance for input at those meetings.
And the only other point, Mayor, if I could, is for the landowner to proceed with what could be very substantial costs and expenses to actually identify the site plan and the engineering and the utility placement and all the other aspects that go along with that. In my opinion, it's unfair to ask a developer to do that without at least some assurance that the types of uses are considered approved. And so with that, my opinion at this point is that a CUP is appropriate, and with the condition of actual site plan review by the Planning and Zoning Commission, I think that's adequate public review.
Thank you. We do have a couple members of the public that would like to address this. I would like to have them address this, and then we'll come back to council discussion if that's all right with everybody. Rob Ingalls.
Thank you, board members and mayor. My concern is in planning, and it seems that some of you, the manager and the mayor, were aware back in 2019 when there was an RV proposal that was considered for land, either this land or real close to it, that has subsequently been sold. And it seems that 3 years almost have passed since that issue. And at this point, the conceptual site plan that was provided was just a very limited portion of the whole property. And being at that meeting and, yes, speaking out and hearing residents and some of the concerns along Wagon Wheel Road and how close development might come to the surrounding camp environments, those things in my mind do seem legitimate, and I feel that maybe the town should have been more responsive from back in December of 2019, looking and maybe working with ADOT on where driveway access would be. I presently have 2 homes in the Shola Lake area that are not being resided in by anybody or rented, but when I come and go from that property, right now it's already difficult with the amount of traffic on 260, and there is a newly built driveway access right next to the go-kart track. So if a guest ranch begins and the increase that goes on there creates traffic concerns along either 260 or for the residents along Wagon Wheel, being at that meeting and thinking that here's a conceptual site plan now provided for that small 10 acres. But if I'm understanding right, the commission and staff's opinion is that that's a conceptual site plan that is valid over the whole 143 acres. And I find that wrong. And I think that due to the lead time of years past and being aware of the record of decision that the Forest Service released this property after a lot of public input, some of the concerns that should be the responsibility of our town have not been addressed at this point. And a more thorough conceptual site plan to grant a conditional use or have conditions that would be more than just saying it's going to come back and the public will have a chance. That means just an agenda item. But a public hearing for conditional use, the postings and all that, help the public at least have an opportunity to be engaged instead of having to find the item on an agenda or somebody knocking on their door and calling them and saying, did you know this is going on? The packet that was submitted and my signature on that, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. And at this point, I'm just going to say, let it stand for itself, and we'll see where we go with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Nora Stodd.
Thank you. I assume it's still Madam Mayor and members of the board. How's that? Is that correct? Good evening. You have all obviously received and reviewed our appeal and request for redress. As stressed in this appeal, we do support the guest ranch concept for this parcel, but are concerned about conformance to the town plan. A lot of my comments, what I'd like to do is I'd like to address some of the recommendations made in the staff report in terms of options for action by the board tonight. Option one, the town should be well aware that it doesn't have the authority to do option one and deny standing or our appeal. Recognizing with its recently proposed aggrieved persons code that was tabled by Planning and Zoning on the 25th of August. I will address option two, that the board affirms that the P&Z Commission thoroughly reviewed all conditions and concluded no conditions were necessary by sharing the key findings of a legal opinion from a highly respected and experienced zoning attorney, Mr. Robert Pizzarno of Phoenix. Mr. Pizzarno was engaged to review our appeal and associated application materials, adequacy of the conditional use permit approval process, as well as advise us of our options. This information will add clarity to the inappropriateness of this option. Before getting into, and I'm going to present some of the legal highlights right out of his opinion. Before getting into some of these legal highlights, I'd like to have us all acknowledge that immediately following conditional use permit approval by P&Z, this 143-acre parcel has been listed by Frank Smith and Associates for sale for $7.5 million, with a listed land use of commercial and property subtype for hospitality, hotel, and master plan community, all under a conditional use permit for guest ranches that the staff briefing says will only occur on 15 to 20 acres. Yet the entire parcel is listed and it averages $49,000 per acre. This concerns us and our attorney, and the CUP would transfer with sale. This was one of the main reasons we did file the appeal. We were concerned because there were no adequate conditions and that it appeared to be applicable to the full 143 acres. So, Mr. Pizzorno, some of the key things that I lifted out of the opinion was that the CUP application pertains, and you know the parcel number, which is legally defined as a parcel comprising approximately 143 acres. That is the only legal description provided in the application. At no time does the applicant provide a separate legal description for the affected area to be covered under the conditional use permit. Therefore, the only legal interpretation is that the entire parcel will be subject to the CUP. While this is a logical assumption, tonight's packet you have before you states the applicant requests that the CUP limited to 15 to 20 acre conceptual site plan. Town code requires an accurate legal description for the affected property. The present application provides no such legal description of the 15 to 20 acre affected property, but rather provides a legal description for the entire 143 acre parcel. This directly contradicts staff's report provided to the board. The entire 143 acre parcel will now be covered by a conditional use permit as section 1780.80 of effect of the approval status A, issuance of a CUP but shall be deemed to authorize only the particular use and site plan for which is issued, which would be for this 143 acres. Second, while the narrative provided by the applicant gives broad responses with no real specificity to the requirements outlined in town code for conditional use permit review criteria, the town has failed to address and outline the conditions of approval as required by 17.80-050. The town is required to include the conditions as outlined in sections A through C. There isn't even a reference to this section listed in the conditions for approval section. In fact, the only condition for approval is site plan review will come before the commission for review.
Thank you.
Would you like to hear more about the legal opinion?
How long do you have to go?
Well, the germane part, I probably have another 2 minutes worth, but let me just get to
just the highlight, if you
the
would,
highlights. The site plan is inadequate. The site plan is required, and this is my words now, obviously, at the onset. It's required with the application. And we got it for the small area, the crosshatch area. It does not meet the criteria for a site plan that are enumerated in site plan in the criteria for all the things. The map drawn to scale, a map you can even read. The bottom line, and as he said, this is a sophisticated developer. He should know that the conceptual site plan is not all that expensive. And it's something that anywhere else in the state would be required of a developer or property owner seeking a conditional use permit. And basically he says, you guys are the stewards of the town code and you need to honor and apply this consistently.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Okay, council, we'll go back to our discussions. I'd just like to remind everybody what Paul said is that we cannot expect any developer to go to all the engineering costs, the drainage studies, the traffic studies, all of those things without some kind of an assurance that he can produce this project. That's not right for us to expect somebody else to do all of that before they have some assurance. So I'm going to open this up for council discussion. Councilor Snitzer.
Okay, I'll ask for some indulgence because it'll probably take me some time. We've just heard what an attorney said. That's called an opinion. Any day you can go into any courtroom in the country, there are hundreds of thousands of them probably, and you will find two attorneys. Each one of them has an opinion, and they're the opposite of each other. So attorneys have opinions, judges have decisions. We haven't talked to a judge. We're here because of an appeal. I want to talk about that, but I want to take a step back first. The appeal document, I have a big problem with the appeal, but in the document, they raised an issue that I think is very important and I agree with. And I want to come back to that issue. And I think that coming back to that issue after a long drawn-out discussion is going to take care of the problem, I hope. But I want to talk about the appeal. And we're here because of the appeal. And an appeal, as I understand it, has two parts, an injury and a remedy. And I want to talk about the remedy first. And the remedy said, in the document, it says that the remedy would be the conditional use permit should be approved, but just for 10 acres. And I think that fails because it's unduly restrictive. He, in his presentation, he said that he required 20 to 25 acres, and a 10-acre conditional use permit is overly restrictive. The other part of the appeal process is an injury, and our code says an aggrieved person can file an appeal. And so I looked up, I Googled aggrieved party. This is not page 3 down there, this is the one that was on top. And it says an aggrieved party, and they gave two definitions. The first is an individual who's entitled to commence a lawsuit because his or her legal rights have been violated. We have not heard that. The one that I think is most applicable says a person whose financial interest is directly affected by a decree, judgment, or statute is also considered an aggrieved party entitled to bring an action challenging the legality of the decree, judgment, or statute. So I consider that no injury has been demonstrated, and it has not been demonstrated that the relief sought would fix the injury. So I think we could not approve the appeal on those grounds. But I think they have raised an extremely valid point for our community that we need to have some protection for the community interest of this development. Now, we did not hear, in fact, reading through the minutes, there were several people, and we just heard another one, Norris, saying, I like this idea. I think this is a great idea. I'm just concerned about where it goes. And so the remedy was let's require a conditional use permit. And I do not agree with what was said about the site plan. It was never intended to submit a site plan. It was a conceptual site plan that was submitted, and a site plan was not required yet. Before anything is built, a site plan is required. The Planning and Zoning Commission I sat on for years is an advisory committee. There's only two areas that they make decisions. One is conditional use permits, and the other is site plans. That's the only two things they can approve. And but it's the same board, the same people that approve both of them. And so saying, gee, you got to approve a site plan, but before that you got to approve a bunch of little bitty conditional use permits and then a bunch of site plans. I think that's just vast overkill, and it inhibits the guy who's trying to develop this property. I think that there's an adequate mechanism to protect the community interest built in with one suggestion, that we would not approve anything that has been offered as the alternatives, but we would approve a conditional use permit with one condition. And the condition would be that before anything is built and any further developments occur on this land, that a complete site plan will be presented for review and approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission in a regularly scheduled public meeting. And that will give ample opportunity for the public to be aware, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we're not committing to right now we're not committing to anything if we approve this. The first commitment will be the approval of the first site plan. And so if that takes place at a Planning and Zoning meeting, the public will have a chance to weigh in on it. If this project is successful and they decide to build more of these things, 3 years down the road, everybody will be happy. If this project has problems and they come back in 3 years, why would they do that if it's having problems? But then why would the Planning and Zoning approve it if it has problems? So I think the appeal fails, but I think the concern is real and should be addressed. And I think we address it by amending this to say that site plan approval is required for each step.
Site plan approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
By the Planning and Zoning Commission in a scheduled public meeting.
Yes. Thank you for your eloquent comments, Councilor Schnitzer. Any other questions, comments? Councilor Heisler, did you have something to say?
I do. Jeremiah, if you wouldn't mind indulging me for a minute. So the CUP that we put up, and I read here, the applicant included the entire parcel, which indicated 142.69 acres. There were only 2 sites that he was interested in on the property, but still to be said, 2 sites in the 142 acres, correct?
Right, but they're conceptual, so it could move, it could increase, it could decrease based on due diligence. It could be moved entirely based on engineering after he gets some level of commitment from the town that yes, his conditional use permit is going to be upheld, that he moves forward and then finds, hey, this isn't feasible, or I need to scale it back, or I need to increase it or move it somewhere else. So that's why I think also that to tie the conditional use permit to the conceptual site plan is unfair.
So to further that, the CUP is issued for 15 to 20 acres of the 146. So he could put
the CUP is for the entire parcel.
Okay.
And but what is contingent is building on that and where it would be, and that would be captured in the actual detailed site plan.
So when it would come back to us or Planning and Zoning for future review.
Right. So take for instance, say Mr. Coate wants to cook a pot of beans on the opposite side of the property. Does he have to go back and get a new conditional use permit to cook a pot of beans on the other side of the property? So I think that, that's an extreme example, but that could happen. So I think that tying it to a conceptual site plan, whereas we know that, that's his property. He can do as he wants with it if he chose to sell it. I could sell my property today. I bought a piece of property today and I'm happy about it. So it's property rights really is what it comes down to. And I think that if we tie it specifically to that site plan, it's just, it's egregious, I think, in my opinion, because that could change based on many, many factors that we can't predict entirely.
Okay, and then under the CUP issued, are we worried about a Marriott, a 10-story Marriott getting built on this property, or?
That's not part of the guest ranch. So it has to fall in line with the conditional use permit and the underlying zoning, which is RLO.
So then the real estate listing, a private real estate listing really has no bearing on how it's listed or advertised or anything else, really has no bearing on the use of the property.
That's correct, and there's inaccuracies in those all the time. Just recently, for an example, when somebody bought a piece of property off of Eagle Loop and were sold that they could live in an RV there. Unfortunately, it's not zoned for RVs. It's not an RV park. And so the answer was, sorry, you were misled, but the zoning requirements still apply.
And then I guess my last comment, and maybe you can answer, maybe Keith might be able to answer, but in a case that the town code doesn't specifically address something, then wouldn't we then default to what state law has in their books?
Yes.
So then in this case, the definition of an aggrieved party in state statute, to Councilor Schnitzer's point,
is valid then, even though it's not in town code, it's still in state law.
It is still in state statute, and it actually is specifically in the state statute pertaining to the Board of Adjustment. So it actually pertains to if there was an appeal to this, say, to the Superior Court, which is the final, the last attempt, if there wasn't another appeal on the ruling tonight, then that same definition that we were trying to apply would apply. Yes.
So from my perspective, I guess I agree with Councilor Snitzer in to some degree that this appeal, I mean, and I don't know, I might be getting a little extreme, but if I wanted to build a garage on my property and somebody from the other end of town had a problem with that and filed an appeal of my ability to build a garage on my property, I mean, I take a little bit of issue with that. I was at the planning and zoning meetings when this issue came before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there were notices issued to those within the legal requirements. I think 8 people spoke that night. I think of those 8 people, I'm sorry, I think 10 people spoke that night. Two people were town residents, 8 people lived within the county. Not one person, to my recollection, spoke against this property. There were some concerns about egress. There were other concerns like that, but everybody seemed to be in general support of this kind of a project for the community that we live in. And so I think it's a little bit dangerous to set the precedents. Of course, I'm the most junior council member. I don't know what the precedence has been of this council in the past, but to just allow, and I don't want to make it like I'm trying to stifle voices, because I'm not, but this is a legal action. It's not somebody coming to a council meeting or a Board of Adjustments meeting and giving their opinion. It's a legal action that's preventing Mr. Coate from being able to move forward with the development of his property. And I don't believe that, from my review of state statute, that any of the people that signed this letter meet the definition of an aggrieved party. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Did you have a comment? No? Yeah. Yes. Councilor Buse.
I also attended the meetings. The second meeting I listened to at home, but I've read over the transcript again here. Again, most people were for this in some way. I would say that a condition, and I was surprised, I thought a condition would have been made that night by the P&Z. But what I would propose is that a condition is made that any and all site plan reviews will come before the commission for review regarding this issue. And I think that should keep people pretty, I think that would, the community should be okay with that resolution to move forward with this. And I think Mr. Coate would also, I would believe in something like that. So that's what I would propose.
Thank you. I agree with that. Vice Mayor.
I would just have one like to get a little clarification. Great job, Councilor Snitzer. Is the difference between your change to where the site plan would be approved by planning and zoning, is that a change because it would normally be approved by only the community development manager?
Yeah. There's a possibility that could occur. There is a caveat within the code that, yes, I could administratively approve a site plan.
Okay, and I agree that I think the Planning and Zoning Commission should review that site plan.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
If I could just add, the Planning and Zoning Commission did talk extensively about a site plan. And so even though they did not make a motion for the site plan to come back to them, it was quite obvious that they intended for that to happen. And we as staff would follow through on what that recommendation was. I mean, we talked about it just before they made the motion. Do we need to nail it down? But John, the chairman, was very explicit in his explanations to one of the other commissioners that the site plan would come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands what the Planning and Zoning Commission desire was, even though it wasn't stated in a motion. That is what their desire was. And so by approving that tonight, if that is the course you go, that's the same direction that coincides with theirs direction.
So my question then is, do we need to add the condition that it goes back to the planning and zoning?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, we
Yeah,
do.
that's my understanding that we would.
Yes, Counselor Snitzer?
Are you ready for a motion?
Real briefly, Mr. Coate, did you have anything you wanted to say tonight? I mean, you're here. If you'd like to come up, just give you that opportunity. And then I'll get back to you, Counselor Snitzer.
Many of my points that I was going to make have already been made for me by town staff and by members. I should say good evening, Board of Adjustments, Mayor. It's good to be with you. One point I would bring out tonight that was brought up here is I'm applying for a 142-acre CUP for guest ranch for the entire property. I would not be standing before you for a 10-acre or 20-acre guest ranch. That wouldn't interest me. I wouldn't come forward with that. I identified, because I think functionally where you're going to have your guests or your stuff is going to be in a 10-acre site or a 20-acre site, and I identified 2 areas that I think have the quality for the guest experience, whether that we can achieve those locations functionally to be determined. Those areas might have to move around in the site. I have no problem, and I said this many times at the Planning and Zoning Committee, that the Planning and Zoning Committee would have many bites at the apple. We would come to them with any site plan. My only one concern is certainly if we're going to propose, 10 units and 30 tents. Oh, by the way, I'm going to Denver for the glamping convention here in October. I'm very excited about it. See if we can bring some of the new and best experiences here to Pinetop. Any big initiative or a new site plan will come to planning and zoning. But this is a horizontal hospitality offering. So it's kind of a general area, and then every year you add something new. At least we do at our resort in Minnesota, and we do down in Tanque Verde. And we would certainly use the whole property. So might identify an area for the reception and for the guest structures, but amenities would be throughout the property. Certainly a Site B, if it's not buildable, that will definitely be sort of an eating area or a breakfast ride area. We're not going to have horses, but a breakfast walk area. So I'm happy with the condition. Any questions?
Anything? Okay, thank you.
I guess.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Counselor Watson.
The only question I have is, the item on the agenda is an appeal. And so is our action limited to approval or denial of the appeal versus putting additional requirements on the CUP? And I don't know the answer to that. I wish I did.
I believe that we can deny the appeal but add the conditions. Would that be appropriate, Jeremiah? Okay. Does that make sense? Okay, Counselor Snitzer, are you ready?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
One more comment while I'm
Sure.
right here. I didn't get to say anything, but the last action item in the previous meeting was talking about the general use plan. And I won't speak for the other members of the 344 acres out there that was previously in the Camp Toddy Land Exchange, but we would encourage you, I believe all of us would encourage you to go ahead forward with that a more appropriate land use design. I won't be here for October 6th, so I just want to say that.
Thank you. Counselor Buse.
Again, just for clarification, I would like to see it say any and all site plan reviews.
Yeah, I have any, but yeah, okay.
Okay, go ahead. Give it a
Okay.
shot.
I move to approve conditional use permit, CUP-132, and allow a guest ranch to be constructed on APN-212-01-036N with the condition that any site plan be reviewed and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission at a regular public meeting.
Any and all.
Yeah, any and all. There is a difference.
Okay. Any and all, to me, any and all, but okay, I'll add all for you.
Okay, Vice Mayor.
Don't we need to deny the appeal?
Jeremiah, do we need to deny the appeal or just affirm the, I'm sorry, this is kind of a legal question. This is uncharted territory?
Right, so I believe, as I stated, I believe it's within the discretion of the board to do both actions, to deny and uphold the condition, deny the appeal, because the appeal, the crux of the appeal is we want this condition, one sole condition, the condition that the conditional use permit is only valid for that specific 15 to 20 acres.
Okay.
So that was the request in the appeal. So basically, the answer is the appeal is
need to deny
denied.
it.
We're upholding CUP 132, and we're adding the condition that any and all site plans be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Counselor Snitzer, could you amend your motion?
Yes, I amend my
Please.
motion to read any and all site plans be reviewed and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission at a regular public meeting.
And denying the appeal?
And I'm happy to do that. I'm just concerned whether, here's my issue. I believe that the appeal fails to meet the requirements of an appeal. So based on that, I will add, let me start from the top. I move to deny the appeal and to approve the conditional use permit, CUP 132, and allow a guest ranch to be constructed on APN-212-01-306-036N with the condition that any and all site plans be reviewed and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission at a regular public meeting.
Thank you.
I will second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you. That carries. All those opposed? I'm sorry. That carries by a vote of 6-1. So the conditional use permit is approved with that condition. That concludes our business tonight. So this meeting of the Board of Adjustments is adjourned. Thank you.